D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes, here with you on a snowy Wednesday in Nashville. If you're on the roads, take it nice and slow. Shout out to TDOT for their work in clearing the major roads. All three of us got in here safely today.
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of like the pace car. I left first. Willie and I are coming from the same part of town. Derek from a different part of town. But I was sort of, as I was driving up the major roads, I was like, this road's okay. This road's okay. This road's okay. And I convinced Derek and Willie to make it into the studio. I'm glad you're here.
Glad we're here too. I mean, I like being in the studio. Contrary to, maybe popular belief out there. I enjoy being in here.
Yeah,
feel connected with you
exactly.
guys.
Yeah.
There's an energy. There's a vibe.
Exactly.
You can't replicate that.
Yeah, you can't do
you
that.
can't
when you're at
replicate
home.
that when you're at home. It's a little different.
Every
Good
once in a
vibes
while,
only.
yeah.
Good
And then
vibes.
we wouldn't be
only.
able to see David.
Right.
Exactly.
David has to come in here no matter what.
I have to make the trip.
Right. Otherwise, the show doesn't go on
Exactly.
the air. So if there's a
Through
blizzard,
hella high water.
yeah, if there's a blizzard, he's screwed.
Yeah, no matter what, I'm still gonna be here.
Right.
There's a nice couch underneath here too, so I'll
And you like the
take that.
mailman.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go. Rain, sleet, or snow. David will be here. Man in the boards.
All right. So, gentlemen, if you'll indulge me for a few moments,
Let's go.
I have a
got some bourbon
presentation.
right here. Cigar.
I have a
ready.
presentation that I would like to make to the class. And I want you two to participate. I'm going to ask you some questions at various points during this.
Okay.
But if at any point I say something wrong or off base, or you need to add more context, I want you to interject. Okay. So I'm going to do my DVD monologue here. So yesterday, as I do every weekday from 2 to 6 p.m., I was listening to Stillman and Company. I love Jared's show. I know we like to rip on each other, but Jared is a good friend of mine, all of ours. It's all love when we pick apart each other's takes. So as I was listening to Stillman and Company yesterday, Jared was talking about his number one guy, Sam Darnold.
You
Jared,
think he has a Sam Darnold poster in his
He
house?
might.
Yeah, I think so.
like how my sister used to have a Hanson poster
Yeah.
on the back of her door. Maybe Jared has a Sam Darnold poster on the back of his door. Who's to say? Jared loves Sam Darnold. Jared wants Sam Darnold to be the Titans starting quarterback next season. Sam Darnold went 14-3 as a starter this season for the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold had a great season until it mattered. Week 18, Vikings, Lions, huge game, right? Biggest game to that point of Sam Darnold's NFL career. As I said, the stakes were huge. The winning team won the NFC North, won the first seed in the NFC playoffs, first round bye, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Huge game. Here's how Sam Darnold performed in that game, which the Vikings lost 31-9. 18 of 41 for 166 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 2 sacks, and a 16.1 QBR. Not a good game. But he had a chance to redeem himself. The Vikings still made the playoffs, of course. They were 14-3. But they had to go on the road now, right? They had to go on the road to face the Rams. The game was actually in Arizona because of the wildfires in Los Angeles. Sam Darnold's first career playoff game. How did he do in that playoff game, which the Vikings lost?
It was his what?
First career playoff game.
Okay. All right.
You have to play well
Yeah.
over the course of your career to get into playoff
Right.
games.
Okay.
His first career playoff game. 25 of 40 for 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 9 sacks, and a 13.6 QBR. The 9 sacks by the Rams tied an NFL postseason record. The 82 yards Sam Darnold lost on those sacks was a postseason record, surpassing the 76 yards Bart Starr lost to sacks against the Cowboys in the 1967 NFL championship game, also known as the
Ice ball.
Ice Bowl.
the Ice Bowl. So I'm not great at math. 2025 minus 1967. Roughly how many years is that? 55?
I'd say the weather was a little bit better in Sam
Yeah.
Darnold's game than the ice ball. A
Exactly.
little easier to throw the ball.
Not a lot of snow in
57 years,
Glendale,
I think.
Arizona. Yeah, so almost 6 decades, right? Quick math. Set a record for futility in that game. Why am I bringing all of this up? Derek, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Which local athlete have we been debating with Jared over the past number of weeks?
My main man, UC Soros.
That's right, UC Soros. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks yesterday as I was listening to Jared talk about Sam Darnold. A lot of the criticisms that Jared Stillman has about Sam Darnold are just as valid about UC Soros or vice versa. A lot of the criticisms that Jared has about Sam Darnold, or UC Soros, I should say, are also valid about Sam Darnold. Willie, what is Jared Stillman's number one criticism of UC Soros?
Hasn't won in playoffs.
Never won in the playoffs, has never won anything of significance. What is Sam Darnold one of significance? What is he one of significance in
Nothing.
the two biggest games of his career? According to ESPN research, he threw a combined 23 off-target throws in the games against the Lions and the Rams. 23 combined off-target throws. Again, how many playoff games has Sam Darnold won in his career?
Uno.
He's 0.
0. He's
Oh,
played in
yeah,
one,
He
and
played
he
in one, yes.
actively hurt his team in that game.
And I would argue that the Lions game was
Mhm.
really as close to a playoff game
Yeah, it
as,
was a
as
playoff
a regular
game.
season game could be. And he did not play well in that game at all.
He absolutely did not play well in the two biggest games of his NFL career. All of this is to say that despite all of those facts, Jared Stillman wants to give Sam Darnold a 4-year contract worth $164 million, $80 million guaranteed. So it's okay to give a big money contract to a quarterback who has never won anything of significance in his career. But it's not okay to give a big money contract to a goaltender for those same reasons. That's interesting.
Very.
And the thing I would say about Soros, too, is there's no comparison between Soros's regular season
Mhm.
achievements and Darnold's regular season achievements.
I'm glad you bring that up.
It's
one
not
thi-
even close. Like,
one
we're not
thing-
even in the same
No.
as
no.
what does Samuel L. Jackson tell John Travolta? It's in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
We're not in the same ballpark. We're not even in the same league. Like, we're not
We're
even in the same
stratosphere.
Yeah,
Now you're making me
they're
think about
talking
that
about
movie.
they're talking about a different subject,
Yes.
and the subject is a foot massage.
Yeah.
But let's not go there. Let's not digress.
You mentioned the regular season.
At least
Jared-
foot massage is one of the subjects. The other subject
Yes.
we can't talk about
Exactly.
in this forum.
No, we
No.
can't. Jared likes to point out that in 2022, Sam Darnold went 4-2 as a starter for the Carolina Panthers down the stretch of that season. They were 3-8 when he took over. He went 4-2 as a starter. I can point to a few examples of UC Soros having stretches of good play in the regular season. For example, last season, during the franchise record point streak, UC Soros went 12-0-2 with a 192 goals against average and a 932 save percentage. You can go back a few years after that, or before that, I should say, to the second half of the COVID-shortened season, the 56-game season, when UC Soros went 16-6-1 with a 1.9 goals against average and a 941 save percentage. I imagine that if I presented those numbers to Jared, he would dismiss them because what did they lead to? He didn't win anything. Well, Sam Darnold went 4-2 as a starter for Carolina. They didn't make the playoffs, did they?
No,
Mm-mm.
in the worst division in the league.
Yes.
Right.
The division was won with what, 8 games? 9?
Yeah. Tampa
8.
Bay, the defending champions, won that division at 8 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that UC Soros has elevated the Predators to the playoffs 3 times. And I'm not even counting last year as one of those 3. I'm counting the 1920 season. He kind of bailed them out after they fired Peter Laviolette. That's when he really ascended to the starter spot. They would not have made it without him. They would have been they were in a playoff position when everything paused. So I look at that. Then the following season that was shortened, that was his greatest elevation. He was incredible. They were dead in the water. He brought them back. And then the 21-22 season where he got injured, so we didn't get to see him in the playoffs. He elevated that team in a big, big way as well. So these are things that Sam Darnold has not done at all. I would say he was not he had a very good season. I'm not taking away what he did in the regular season last year. But why was that team really good? They had arguably the best defense in the league. One of the 2 or 3, but statistically they were at the top for most of the year. And of course, they had a really bright coach who did a great job using their super uber weapon, which is Justin Jefferson, he is a guy that as much as a wide receiver can, he elevates everybody else around him. I would say that they won it was not anything close to a Patrick Mahomes elevating an otherwise mediocre team, even though they weren't predicted to do much during the season. I don't want to take away from his best traits, but I'm just trying to put it in perspective here.
Right. I am not going to discount the fact that Sam Darnold went 14-3 as a starter in Minnesota. Surprised a lot of people. But in the 2 biggest games, he pooped his pants. Let me tell you again his performance in those 2 games. The Week 18 loss to the Lions and the wild card round loss to the Rams. Against the Lions, 18 of 41 for 166 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 2 sacks, and a 16.1 QBR. In the playoffs, 25 of 40 for 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 9 sacks, 13.6 QBR. So, again, my general point. It seems to Jarrett Stillman that it's okay to back up the Brinks truck for a quarterback who has, again, never won anything of significance. He made a Pro Bowl this season. Cool. UC Saros has been to 2 All-Star games. Seems like a wash to me. Sam Darnold has never won anything of significance, but it's okay for Jarrett to give him a 4-year, $164 million contract with $80 million guaranteed. But for those same reasons, he criticizes the Predators for signing UC Saros. I just want to point that out to all of you.
I would also say the contracts are important here. The next contract, first of all, UC Saros has been a bargain for what he has made to this point in his career and what he has given them. It's a steal what he's given them. He was playing for, I forget the contract before he signed the $5 million per year contract. He has easily exceeded value for that contract, and it's not even close. And then before that, he was even more of a steal, making, I don't know what he was, $2.5 million, maybe not even that.
He was making $1.5 million per season.
$1.5 million per season. And look at what he did. He was a premier backup for Pekka Rinne before that. So as far as what he's being paid and what he's given them, it's not even close to Darnold. And then the next contract for Darnold, whoever takes him, unless he takes a team discount to stay with the Vikings. And if I'm Sam Darnold, or if I'm advising Sam Darnold, that's what I'd probably tell him to do. If your goal is to make the most money, that's one thing. But I'm arguing for staying with the Vikings where he's been successful. If he's given a chance to stay for less money, that's what I'm interested in.
And we'll talk about that in the next segment.
You're going to have to overpay for what he's done, and it's not even close. UC Saros' next contract immediately starts as the 9th highest paid goalie in the league, and that number is going to only go down in rank each coming year. So that it's not going to be a bad contract as long as he doesn't fall off a cliff. And I do believe 100% that he will rebound and start playing the level, but that's a separate discussion. There's no comparison to what you're going to have to invest in Darnold and what you hope he's going to do, none of which he's done. He hasn't done anything to warrant that money. It's very similar to Tua in some respects. And Tua had done a lot more than Darnold has done, and Trevor Lawrence. And I think I would argue that Lawrence had done more, or at least equal to what Darnold has done. And I think
he's done more than Darnold.
And Darnold, close. Right? And Darnold's not going to get paid what Tua and Lawrence are getting paid, but he's going to get just under that, and he's done way less than those guys. And those guys haven't lit the world on fire, right? Tua and Lawrence, they've got no playoff wins. Lawrence has got one.
I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just saying quickly. Listen, Sam Darnold, take out the 22 and 23 season because those seasons, that last year in Carolina and the first year in San
It's
Francisco,
a very small sample
take
size.
those two out. So you're talking the three years with the Jets, and then the first year with Carolina, and the last year in Minnesota. This last year, he's an average quarterback. He's a just.
Is he really average?
Yeah,
Like,
he's
I would argue he's below average.
No, and you can say below average. I mean, he's completing about 59% of his passes, somewhere around there. He's going to average maybe 2,700 yards. He's going to get you more interceptions than he will touchdowns based upon, or close to it, based upon those seasons taking out 22 and 23, because he came in with spot duty. So I'm looking at this. If that's what you want, if this is what you want the Titans to get, like you say you seriously love the Titans and you are a big fan of the Titans, anybody, not just Jared, anybody. Is this what you want? Even Ryan Tannehill had a better resume when he came here.
Much better.
Is this what you want? And you're going to have to pay $40+ million for this.
Now, what Tannehill didn't have, he didn't have the one big season.
But Tannehill was consistent. He was a dual threat quarterback.
Better over a longer period of time than Darnold, who is a below. I would label as a below average quarterback on some bad teams, and he was a reason why he certainly didn't do anything to elevate them. The Jets stuff was not good at all. And then here's what I would say about the Carolina. It's interesting because I think Jared has said, hey, he went 4-2 that 1 year for Carolina.
He has mentioned that many times.
Man,
but remember, he was the starter the year before in Carolina. In 2021, they went 4-7. And after that season, they liked Darnold so much that they brought in Baker Mayfield, right? That didn't go well, so Darnold got the job back and played well in the last 6 games. He played so well in those last 6 games that they drafted Bryce Young and traded up to get Bryce Young. So if they thought Darnold was a good starter and the reason that they went 4-2 in those games and they were going to be good, why would they have drafted Bryce Young with the first pick?
Listen,
Does that make sense?
My thing is, if this is what you want, even Ryan Tannehill had a better resume. If you're talking about long numbers and his consistency throughout his career, when he played damn near a whole season, he was a good quarterback. Sam Darnold ain't even that. So if this is what we're arguing, going back and forth about, with the fan base or with Jared or whoever, anyone else, is this what you want? Mediocrity at the position. We've had enough of mediocrity.
This is the point I want to make. I want to emphasize it again. I think it's interesting that Jared is stumping for a quarterback who has never won anything of significance. Yes, Sam Darnold had a 14-3 record in the regular season. I'm not taking that away from him. UC Saros has had really good regular seasons. But to Jared, those good regular seasons that UC Saros has had, they don't matter because he hasn't won in the playoffs. So I just think it's interesting that he wants to pay big money to a quarterback who has never won anything of significance.
It counteracts. It's two arguments that contradict one another.
Right. He doesn't like that the Predators committed to UC Saros. And I know that contracts in the NHL and the NFL are different in terms of what you can do with them. But he wants to back up the Brinks truck for a quarterback who has never won anything of significance. He had the opportunity to do so twice and failed miserably both times.
Right. But okay, so let's try to make an argument about the contracts.
Okay, why don't you hold that thought?
Yes.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on this. Sam Darnold, Titans quarterbacks, whatever you'd like. 615-737-1025. Then we'll get to Willie's points about the contracts. Nashville's best deal of the week is from Bavarian Beer House, located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy traditional German beer, brats. There could be brats you never
Brats
know.
like brats.
Brats like brats.
Yeah.
Brats, giant pretzels,
Everybody
and more.
likes brats.
Right. Giant pretzels
Who
and
doesn't like
more
brats?
in their expansive beer hall and garden. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last.
great.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Thousands of dollars are at your disposal if you're a homeowner. The average homeowner has over $300,000 in equity. So that is money that you can utilize if you are in need of a bundle of cash. And this is constructive, right? You want to maybe take that cash, pay off a credit card that has a big interest rate that's just eating up your budget every month when you go pay your bills. Maybe you've got a home improvement project that you need to fund and make your house even more valuable. These are the reasons, and there's many others, that you might need to get some cash out. And Loan Pronto is the engine you can do it. They're the leader in quickly converting home equity into cold hard cash. You can pay off those credit card bills. You can start that home remodel. So call them right now and get approved in as little as 1 day with no hard credit pull. They can make this really pain-free. No paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisal. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Get the money you need. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Tune into 102.5, 106.3 The Game tonight for Vanderbilt men's basketball as the Commodores take on Kentucky with a 6 o'clock tip-off, and the pregame show starts at 5:30.
Big game.
Big game. Vanderbilt men's basketball presented by Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium now through March 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets. So we're talking about Sam Darnold. And for those of you who missed the opening segment, to summarize, I think it's interesting that Jared Stillman loves Sam Darnold and wants to give him a huge contract when Sam Darnold has won nothing of significance in his NFL career. In the two biggest games of his career, one playoff game and what was essentially a playoff game with the number one seed, a first-round bye, home field advantage throughout, the NFC playoffs on the line, he choked. But it's okay to give him a big money contract, but he criticizes the Predators for doing the same for UC Saros for, according to him, the same reasons. So I'm just trying to unpack all of this. But Willie, you wanted to talk about the contract situations because in the NFL and the NHL, obviously, the contracts are different. But you wanted to talk about the contract differences between the two.
Yeah, just a quick point. And another one that just comes to mind as you say that is part of if Sam Darnold had repeatedly not done well in big games, I would at least be able to say, at least he's getting them to big games. You have to play in big games to do well or not do well in big games. Those two games are really the first two big games he ever played in, other than we found the one game against Tom Brady late in the season where Carolina they earned a strange opportunity to win a division at 8-9. You know, two kind of poor teams. Somebody had to win the division. You could argue that game late in the season at Tampa, and he played pretty well in that game. But you can count on one hand the number of big games he's played in after all these years. This is another thing that tells you, it screams at you, do not put huge money down on this guy when he hasn't done it. You're going to have to overpay because of the premium of the quarterback position. You have to overpay to get him because he's the best of the lot in terms of what he's bringing to the table, especially with the recency bias. But as far as the contract, take a look at what the Saints and the Jets have to do to get out of contracts for quarterbacks that have done a lot more than Sam Darnold. They're in salary cap trouble and paying a big chunk of dead money because they had to overpay to get Rodgers and Carr, respectively, the Saints and the Jets. I would say that it's a much better bet that UC Saros will be worth the contract for 8 years, or at least a high number of those 8 years, because they didn't overpay. They underpaid to get Saros, and he takes up a lot lower percentage of the cap than what this Darnold contract is going to do. Even though you structure contracts differently, it's a little bit apples to oranges on how you structure NFL contracts and NHL contracts. But you're betting on a guy that really hasn't done anything, and you're betting big money.
So The Athletic had a story about Sam Darnold's future with the Vikings. What's most likely and why? It was written by Alec Lewis, who reports on the Vikings for The Athletic. Alec Lewis, by the way, wrote that story we talked about a few weeks ago about the drafting and the value of picks and such. Alec Lewis wrote that story, which we referenced on the show. So Alec Lewis lists what he thinks the Vikings' options are from least likely to most likely. So at the top is the least likely, at the bottom is the most likely. He says the least likely situation is a multi-year extension for Sam Darnold. I think we would all agree with that. He then has the franchise tag. Third on this list, he writes the Vikings should have around $60 million in cap space for 2025. They need interior offensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, cornerbacks, running backs, and potentially safeties. Supplementing the roster with impact players with Darnold occupying the franchise tag around $41 million is nearly impossible. Where the idea of franchise tagging Darnold gets interesting is if it involves a trade. Would another team try to prevent Darnold from hitting free agency and being pursued by multiple teams by trading draft capital for him? It wouldn't be the first time for a quarterback. In 2009, the Patriots weren't sure about Tom Brady's status returning from a torn ACL. Matt Castle had played well the previous year with Kevin O'Connell as his backup, so the Patriots franchise tagged him as a safe play. Eventually, upon realizing Brady would be healthy for 2009, New England traded Castle to the Kansas City Chiefs for a second-round pick. Franchise tagging Darnold is sensible in two worlds. McCarthy's rehab would have to take a turn, all signs have been positive, or another team would have to commit to parting with draft picks for him. Otherwise, this option would not be the most beneficial for what the Vikings have long wanted to do, build the most rounded team, emphasized.
So if you're the Vikings, what I'm trying to sell, if I'm the Vikings, I'm trying to sell Darnold on taking a little less money to stay. But why? Okay, tell me, am I wrong on that? Like, if you really think Darnold is a special quarterback, who's the better bet for the Vikings to have success in the next year or two, Darnold or J.J. McCarthy?
I mean, based upon what we saw,
Forget about
last year,
McCarthy's your first round pick, and you don't want to use a first round
It's
pick
Darnold.
if you're not going to
It's
play
Darnold.
him.
It's
Yeah.
Darnold.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't so what option do you think they'll take out of those three? Is there a strong speculation there?
So Alec
The
Lewis,
franchise tag doesn't seem to be the right way to go. It's like, hey,
Mm.
do you want to stay here for a reasonable number? It's worked out well for you here. You'll be the starter next year.
That's not going to work. It's not going to work because he wants security. He wants a longer term deal. And unless something other than what Minnesota has said, they said it's the meniscus. If something else is wrong with that knee that they're not telling us, then I can see them, signing Darnold to a longer term contract. But if it's just the meniscus like they said, no, why would you sign him to a long year deal? And why would Darnold take less money on less years? He wants security. He wants the ability to be able to walk in there and say, at least for the next 2 to 3 years, I'm going to be the quarterback based upon the monies that are guaranteed to me. And I don't think Minnesota's going to do that.
So according to Alec Lewis, the likeliest option is for Darnold to test free agency. And this is what Alec Lewis writes, quote, think of it almost like a checklist. If McCarthy's health continues to trend the way it is, and the Vikings decide their roster is better off without a hefty cap hit at quarterback, and no other team expresses interest in trading for Darnold, and the Vikings want to create a chance for a compensatory pick, letting Darnold walk is the understandable path. There aren't guarantees. McCarthy showed promise last fall, but young quarterbacks come with uncertainty. The team's free agent signings could cancel out any compensatory pick. Still, this is the most realistic route if the Vikings are still committed to their chosen path before 2024, letting Kirk Cousins hit free agency to build an optimal roster around a young quarterback, which was the plan before
Right.
J.J. McCarthy got hurt. Darnold produced unexpectedly in 2024, upholding the competitive portion of the competitive rebuild strategy GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah outlined when he took the job. With a refreshed salary cap and drafted QB later, it's time to see if the rebuilding portion of the last few years can maintain the competitiveness.
If O'Connell believes in his system, and I'm sure he does, it's sort of like McVay and it's sort of like Shanahan. My system is my system, and you're going to have success in my system. I know that. So no matter who, as long as you can be a competent quarterback, as long as you can read what's going on, you should have a good year. You may not get us to the Super Bowl, but you'll have a good year. If Minnesota is thinking from that standpoint, like if O'Connell's thinking this is my offense and I can any one of these quarterbacks I can put in and they can run my offense. If I'm them, I'm not signing Darnold. I'm going to get another veteran quarterback. That may not be, he may be Darnold, but he's not coming with the tag.
Who would that be?
That's what I'm saying. He doesn't come with the price tag of 30, 40 million. He might come with the price tag of 10 million.
So you're saying
But
they would consider Carr over Donald?
It's not even Carr. No. Carr is going to be 30 to 40 million. I'm talking about a $10 million guy, $12 to $15 million guy that can
Mac
come
Jones?
in. Absolutely. Somebody like that, somebody like Joe Flacco that can come in, and if the young guy gets hurt or if it's not going well, at least I can put this guy, insert this guy, and we're still going to get good play. We may not get great play. We may not.
You're saying as insurance,
Exactly.
a lower insurance for McCarthy.
Absolutely. My
Because here's
insurance
my
wouldn't
question
be
about
Sam
McCarthy.
Darnold at $40 million.
McCarthy, number one, is young. He's never
Mhm.
played. Number two, he's coming off of an ACL. What do we always
No, they said
say?
it was a meniscus, didn't they?
I thought he
I
tore
thought
his ACL, didn't he?
Thought it was meniscus. That's what they keep saying.
Well, it was a season-ending injury. He didn't play at all.
Well, they chose to cut his season. I thought it was a meniscus.
According to ESPN, this is back from November. Vikings rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy underwent a second surgery earlier this week on his right knee as he continues to recover from a torn meniscus.
See,
Torn meniscus.
It's meniscus. Like, unless it's something more than that, then okay. But I played 10 days after a meniscus surgery.
There's a lot of different levels of meniscus, I guess, but
I mean, I got a chunk of my meniscus taken out. So to me,
he missed the whole year.
yes, but they chose to shut him down, I think, because they wanted him to learn. Just sit back and learn. That was their excuse.
But didn't they rule him out for the year pretty early in the game? It wasn't because, hey, well, Darnold's doing well, let's not bring McCarthy back. They determined pretty early he was done for the year, did they not?
Yes, I remember we were at training camp, Derek, with watching the Titans when that news broke. So it was during training camp that they made that decision.
If it was just a meniscus, like, why would you shut him down the whole season? Unless
I just see a lot of question marks. And if they really believe in Darnold, and Darnold is a good quarterback, which is what Jared is arguing, then the Vikings should be working hard to keep Darnold.
615.
If they're not, then you got to ask yourself, how good is Darnold? That's my point.
615-737-1025 will take your thoughts on the quarterback conversation. But I've got something for you. If you're caller number 4 right now at 615-737-1025, you will win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Avalanche at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday at 5 o'clock. 615-737-1025, caller number 4. You will win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Avalanche at Bridgestone this Saturday at 5. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
All right, let's talk Lee Company. Remember, the Predators are back in action, as Adam just told you, Saturday night against the Avalanche. Of course, you got that big game tomorrow night, USA versus Canada. That will be must-watch TV. In the meantime, Lee Company, they're moving all around town today, I'm sure, with situations going on with our weather. It's going to get really, really cold. I hope your heating unit is working for you properly. If it's not, Lee Company is ready. 615-567-1000 or LeeCompany.com. Also, remember that Lee Company is ready to service in the coming weeks your air conditioning unit. Get it ready to go so that when it gets extremely hot in the summer, it won't fail you when you really need it the most. That's what Lee Company's situation is. They want to keep you with the year-round coverage of the home maintenance plan. That's the best way to go. So ask about it when you call them, 615-567-1000 or LeeCompany.com. It's Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D. Mace, Vingen, Adonic, 1025, 1063, The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you. Congratulations to Scott. Scott won the pair of tickets to see the Nashville Predators take on the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday. Have a good time, Scott. Say hi to Willie for me. Talking Sam Darnold, talking Titans quarterbacks. Matt from Camden texted in earlier as we were ranting about Sam Darnold. And his question is, who else? There is no one about quarterbacks who could be available. And I think part of the thing with me and Darnold as well is I know that he's the best available option. He's still young. He's coming off of a really good, unexpectedly good regular season, except when it mattered the most. And a lot of teams are going to pay up to try to get Darnold. But how much does Sam Darnold change the fortunes of the Titans franchise? I know that Mike Borgonzi has spoken highly of Alex Smith and what Alex Smith meant to the Kansas City Chiefs before Patrick Mahomes took over. Are we expecting Sam Darnold to be that type of influence on this Titans team?
I'm not. Listen, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Alex Smith, he played well in San Fran at times. I don't know what happened that last year before he went to Kansas City. I don't know if he got hurt or whatnot that season, but they chose to part ways with him. I thought that Alex Smith was a good quarterback then, and he proved it once he went to Kansas City. I'm not sure if Sam Darnold can sort of do what Alex Smith did for Kansas City. I'm not sure that Sam Darnold can do that because, again, outside of Minnesota, he hasn't been able to elevate a team. And get it. You can go back to the 4-2 record. I get it. But listen, that's like saying, what was it? A couple years ago, the division was won with 9 games or 8, somewhere
in
around
2022, when Sam Darnold went 4-2 as a starter for the Carolina Panthers. He took over when they were 3-8.
Mm-hmm.
He won 4 of his 6 games, and they finished 7-10. I believe the Buccaneers won that division at 8-9. The Falcons and Saints also finished at 7-10.
Exactly. So that's like saying, oh man, if he goes in and he dominates a good conference, then yeah, okay, I give him a pat on the back for that.
I mean,
but that was a bad conference, and
to be fair, he did. The Vikings and the Lions were neck and neck throughout the season in the NFC North. Again, until the final game when the Lions laid the smackdown on the Vikings. And the NFC North was the best division in football.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Just
really
for
good,
really
good
season.
So
really
he had
season.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had his season, but is he more of that or more of what he had shown prior to last season? I would beg to argue he's more of the latter. I mean, he's more of what he was throughout his career, minus this season. So again, if that's what you want to see here in Nashville, mediocrity or below average play, then go get him. And that's what you will more than likely get that. But if you don't want to go down that route, then maybe you should look in another direction. Again, Sam Darnold to me is a serviceable quarterback. That's what he is. And I know people but all the people are doing is recency bias. You're just looking at this season. He's a serviceable quarterback. That's just what he is. He's less than Jameis Winston, honestly.
Darnold?
Yes, he is.
It's an interesting argument because Winston's been around longer.
Exactly. But Winston has even though he threw all those in, I get it. He has a better, like if you put his stats on paper next to Darnold's, it's not even a comparable situation.
Just because Darnold was so below par early in his career.
He's always been below par other than this season.
Right.
So
but Winston's never had a season in fairness,
Winston,
that Darnold had last year. He's never played for a
Winston threw
14-3.
I
Yeah,
get
but he's
that.
never played for a 14-3 team. But again, why were they 14-3? They had a great defense.
Mhm.
They have the best wide receiver in the game. That's why they were. Darnold is a like you said, a
Mhm.
serviceable
He's a
quarterback
serviceable quarterback.
when the roster around him plays really well. That's not what he would be coming to Tennessee and stepping into. If I'm the Titans and I feel like I'm a quarterback away from really being good
Mhm.
because the rest of the roster is sound, that might be a little different story. I might be willing to gamble a little bit more on Darnold if he's the best of the available guys out there. But they're nowhere near that. This is an exploratory year. I'm willing to explore on a lower budget for quarterback while I wait and see when the next better deal for a quarterback comes along. I'm just not sold at all that Darnold is for real and definitely not for the price.
Okay. So just for kicks and giggles,
Mhm.
I went to StatHeads versus Finder, head-to-head comparison. Jameis Winston and Sam Darnold, just for kicks and giggles. Did you know that they have exactly the same career completion percentage? 61.2%. I think that's interesting.
Mhm.
Quarterback rate, Winston 86.4, Darnold 83.9 in their careers. And of course, since Winston has played more games than Darnold, the
Mhm.
counting stats, touchdowns and stuff. So I'm not looking at that because they're going to be skewed more towards Winston because he's played more games. But they have the identical completion percentage.
But everybody would think Winston is just trash and he doesn't deserve to be. And I don't think he's a starting quarterback either. Like Winston.
They've also each been to one Pro Bowl.
Right.
But
Winston's played on some horrendous teams,
Exactly.
Especially last year, right? So you ask your question: if Winston played on the Vikings,
Mhm.
I'm not sure Winston would have done as well as Darnold last year, but Winston would have done a lot better, right? He probably throws a few less interceptions when he doesn't have to make the big plays. That's the big rap on Winston.
That he
Right?
throws
He makes too many
interceptions, yes.
too many big mistakes at the wrong time. But Darnold was in this bucket. What do we call them? The bins.
Right.
The bins, right? Last year, what bin would he have been in?
He would have been in
The bargain bin.
Yeah.
please just take him
Yes.
bin.
$1.99.
2 for 1.
No.
2
not
for
even
$1.
$1.99.
Yeah, take him. We're trying to clear the store, right?
Yes.
He went from that to this. He's still the same guy, right? You have to organize, you have to evaluate him on that. You can't just have one season change everything.
It's
Yeah.
recency bias. It's like you're looking on one hand because of what we have seen recently and, throughout his career, but more so recently. With Jameis Winston, he hadn't been a starter, period, other than coming off the bench. He hasn't been a day one starter, I don't think, for anyone in the last 4 or 5 years. But we look at that and we say, oh, Winston, he's definitely not a starting quarterback. He's trash. I agree. He's not a starting quarterback. But why is it all of a sudden now Darnold is this starting quarterback and potentially a savior of a franchise? He's not. If I'm just looking at based upon, the career both of these guys had, I'm taking Winston. If I'm taking Winston before I'm taking Darnold. That's just me. If I surround him with the same cast that Darnold had this year, I'm looking at Winston as more of an upside than Darnold to me. Now, would he have to cut down on the interception? Maybe he wouldn't have to force things because he knows he has a bunch of playmakers. In that O'Connell offense, maybe O'Connell sort of, tapers some of that. But I think you would get the same play from the quarterback position from Jameis Winston that you got from Sam Darnold this year, giving him the great defense on one side, a elite number 1 wide receiver, a bona fide number 2, a hell of a tight end. Offensive line would struggle some, yet they need to upgrade that. But if you give him those same weapons under those same conditions, I think he's going to have the same numbers. And then what will we be talking about in regards to Jameis Winston? He's had a resurgence in his career. Somebody give him $40 or $50 million. It'll be the same thing.
He may have a career in media. He was all over Super Bowl media week, whatever it's called. Very personable guy.
Big game week.
615-737-1025. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow will join us next for our weekly conversation. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Vingen and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you, joined by our friend Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Hutton, I want to start by asking you about something that we don't normally discuss when you're on with us every week. Hockey.
Yeah.
I want to discuss the Four Nations face-off from your perspective. How would you describe your hockey fandom generally?
In person and watching it whenever I can get it, if it's not on YouTube TV.
Have you been enthralled by this tournament so far?
I love the whole rivalry aspect of it. Can it carry over? I mean, what are we're going to have the honorary booing prior to every anthem now moving forward? That's the only way to get the gloves to drop. Look, I mean, it's a huge win compared to the NBA over the weekend. I know that.
Absolutely.
So they should absolutely. I mean, it was not expected. I love what they've created because, I mean, it worked. But I don't know if can you do this whenever it's Minnesota taking on Tampa on a Thursday night? Probably not. But I mean, if you can, we're tuning in. The eyeballs will be there, and that's exactly what they needed. Better than the dunk contest.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the game on Thursday from a viewership standpoint. So the game on Saturday, which was aired on ABC, drew an average of 4.4 million viewers. It peaked at 5.2 million. And it was the biggest audience for a non-Stanley Cup final game, I want to say, since 2019. And I believe the game in 2019 had the Kentucky Derby as a lead-in for context.
Okay.
So I'm curious what you think the ratings will be like for Thursday when you consider the following. The word of mouth from the game on Saturday. A lot of casual fans loved the fights at the beginning. The fact that the Americans won the game. The game tomorrow is on ESPN, not ABC. The game is in Boston tomorrow, not Montreal. I'm wondering what you think a reasonable figure could be when you consider all of those elements.
I mean, I'm thinking less, but not by much. If it's not going to be on the network, because we're all talking about it. I mean, we were discussing it on Hot Mic. Chad's tuned in to see the game against the Swedes, as he says. So, I mean, yeah, people are talking about it that otherwise we wouldn't be. And we're tuned in to see the fights, right? Like that's here's the thing, Adam. The NHL rarely trends on social because of the small clips that, the NBA is a very social media driven league, individual dunk, 3-point, whatever, where we're scrolling. And that's what hockey had this past weekend. They had the social media algorithm going because of what we saw with the back and forth and the rivalry that was created here. So can they carry that over? Absolutely. Because if it's going on social, people are going to tune in. And I think word of mouth, it's word of the scroll, really. And that's how I found out about it and tuned into it. Otherwise, I mean, I certainly wasn't watching the NBA. But I'm going to be tuned in to see the final game here. Yes, absolutely. Because I want to see if this is going to carry over and if we have a headline out of it. And by the way, go USA. I love it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you can't, and I know a lot of people are not, into hockey like that. But if this is a game, if you want to get into hockey, this is a game that you need to watch. Or this was a sort of tournament you needed to watch, was a four nations tournament, because you saw really good hockey play at a fast clip, and you saw some of the best players in the National Hockey League play on a stage like this, where honestly they were the best show over the last week and a half of sports, I would say.
Mace, and it lived up to the Four Nations, right? Like that. Exactly. That's the thing, is there's a pride element that you can't create. Like it has to happen organically. And that's what hockey can really lean into, right? You can't. The NBA is talking about doing something like it's not going to be the same. it's not the same deal. But because that's going to be manufactured. It was real, like, how dare you boo us? Here we go. Let's drop them. And it's carried over from what we saw, 2 weeks ago. So I'm here for it.
Mhm.
Now, can you capitalize on it?
Now
It's not taking over the NBA ratings,
Mhm.
long term with the $76 billion TV deal they have over 11 years. I'm not going that far here, but yeah, lean into it and capitalize on the opportunity to individualize some of your stars. And again, the NBA, they can miss 12 dunks in a row, but Mac McClung's one that he makes is going to be on social media. This is the NHL's chance to do that. I think that really matters to reach a different audience.
Well, I think they got the memo because PK was on
Yeah.
all throughout ESPN yesterday, leading up to tomorrow's game.
They should.
Exactly.
They-
Now
they
let's switch it to the hardwood with the Vols.
All right.
If you just look at them, if you watch them play, this is a damn good team. Obviously, they are, if not the best defensive team in the country, they are a top 2 or 3 defensive team in the country. Even as good as they've shown themselves to be, do you really think they can make a legitimate run? Because as good as they are, they're not the team from last year. Even though they have some of the same players, but I don't feel the same effect that I felt for them last year in regards to heading into the tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, they're going to be starting. Got to hit the threes, right?
Yeah.
Like the way they came back against Vandy.
Now, if Chaz is aggressive and he plays that way from here on out, they got just as good a chance as Auburn. But you don't get that all the time.
And I think tournament time, though, normally you start to see, of course, you see the tight scores, but lower scoring over-unders.
Mhm.
Like you see the overall score drop a bit in the tournament. The defensive teams can really lock down. That should benefit them. It's not going to benefit a team like Alabama. Can't guard anybody. If you're going to run up the scores, they could score with you, but you're really living and dying by the three. At least you have other ways to face up and match up against the opponent, right? So, Tennessee could catch fire. I like the way that the team can come out and really stay aggressive, and I like the fact that they responded the way they did at halftime against Vandy, because Vandy was rolling there, and it's something we haven't seen from the Vols, is to get down by like 15 plus or whatever and come back and take advantage of a run that they had. They got after it. And I'd like to see, that type of mentality. I think that's a defensive team that you're discussing compared to last year.
But what do you think of just the overall product of college basketball right now? It's exciting in the SEC. The atmospheres and the gyms, I think, are very good. I feel like we would all agree it went through a bit of a lull a few years ago. I think we're on the mend here, despite all the craziness of who's on what team, all of the change.
Hey, Willie, and we're not seeing UNC or Kansas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the other part of it.
Kansas got absolutely throttled last night.
Worst loss of Bill Self's Kansas career, I want to say. Last night
they're struggling.
What was his quote? He said everyone was supposed to get away from each other right now.
I know the feeling. Sometimes that does need to happen. That's a good thing.
But I'm in. Look, the fact that. All right, let's take it a step further about the college basketball overview. If Cooper Flagg comes back, that is a huge deal for college hoops, because he's saying, like, I would come back for another year of college. I haven't decided yet. If he does, like, that's like a Caitlin Clark type moment.
That's music to my ears, Hutton. Music to my ears. I'm incredibly skeptical of that, but it's music to my ears.
I love hearing that, though. That's the thing that, you could count on that in the past that we don't have now, right? So, like, I love hearing that from a guy that's going to be a tremendous benefit to the NBA too, by the way.
Right.
But for college hoops, if he sticks around, he even hinting at it was surprising. And good for him. Stay in college, man. Enjoy it. But I mean, he's going to get a boatload of money that is probably going to take him to the draft. Point B, Willie, I'm with you on just the other part of it too, is the SEC strength. And, the fact that it is now at a level where the ACC can be down the way it is, and we're still discussing about the personality of college hoops. Pitino's got, everything's really clicked with the moves that have made it in the coaching hires for some of these programs that otherwise we wouldn't be discussing, and that where the SEC is winning. And of course, Pitino has just been, that was entertaining. what he said
Patino
at
in New
halftime.
York City.
Yes, I'm glad you
That's-
brought
yes.
up Rick Pitino. Like it's good for the game to have him
Yeah.
coaching a good team. I also think it's great
New
for
York's
St.
team,
Yes,
you
for
know?
St. John's to be
Mhm.
relevant. It's always
at the
important.
Garden.
Yep, I absolutely
Yeah,
agree with that.
That's good.
When the last time St. John's was relevant?
It's-
Was it Lopez?
Chris Mullen?
It's
Was
been a
it
minute.
Chris Mullen? You
Well,
remember
it
the kid
depends on what you
Lopez.
consider relevant.
What was his name?
They haven't been this
Felipe
highly
Felipe
rated.
Lopez.
When
yes.
Pitino was at Kentucky.
Yeah, they were kind of overrated back
Yeah.
then. But yeah, St. John's has not been good a long
No.
time. They even have the throwback uniforms when they had Mark Jackson and Chris Mullen and those guys, Walter Berry. But yeah, that's a fun story going on. But you bring up
Willie.
something, Hut,
go
that I
ahead,
think
sorry.
is something to think about of where could it next go with
Yeah.
just how tough it is to dominate when you're 18 or 19 in the NBA, right? There's going to be your Shaq or Kobe that comes along every now and then that can do it. And Cooper Flagg is pretty special for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean,
but you can
seems
now
like it's
make
really-
money, right? So
Yeah.
so you can actually make an
know.
argument, I think, of what's the next best step in my career? Making a lot of money and continuing to work on my game at the college level and having the spotlight of getting not just okay money, but really, really good money, like Caitlin Clark,
Mhm.
right? The Caitlin Clark model. And then
Right.
being that much more ready to step into the NBA and be relevant, because you see a lot of lottery picks every year go to the NBA, and then 3 or 4 years later, you're like, so where is so-and-so? Remember he played that 1 year at Kansas or Kentucky, and oh, there he is. He's playing over in Oklahoma City or Sacramento. Like there's a lot of them, but they've lost the spotlight, right? I think a Cooper Flagg could say, give me another
Yeah.
year at Duke, make a nice national title run,
Mhm.
and then I'm that much more advanced to where my first year in the NBA, I can keep that spotlight on me a little bit more.
I mean, there's a level-headedness to what he's saying that I just don't expect anymore.
Yes.
You know, like
It used to be a no-brainer.
when
What are you
you're that
doing? Just go.
young-
You're a lottery pick. Go. You're gone. You're going to the NBA.
Yeah,
End of
yeah,
discussion.
yeah. But but also think about what he means to the NBA. Like the dudes from France were the number 1 and number 2 pick. You know, like we don't know these top
Right,
guys.
we don't know them at
anymore.
all.
And we if he stays another year and then hits the NBA, that's what the NBA needs too. They need someone like him that you can connect with. I mean, again, it's a huge benefit no matter what he does to either side of this. But for college hoops, that is the fabric of college sports that I miss so much. Is just that being able to recognize what you're watching. You know, the style of play year in and year out. Now it changes. Year to year, and certainly the stars change. And by the time they develop into a quote unquote star, you're on to the next one. The best player that is going to be, they're going to be begging him to go to the draft. If he stays, that's awesome. That's
It's
awesome
just about
for college
getting
sports.
to know these players. That's the best part about college sports
right
for me.
Yeah, the story,
Right.
the backstory.
You get to know teams because a lot of these players back before the
Yep.
one and done era, they would be on the team for all 4 years and you sort of grew up with them.
Of
right?
course.
Now it's like they're mercenaries almost, right? That they have to go to college for a year. You hope they go to your team. And, sometimes they might stick around for another year, but as soon as you get to know them, they're transferring somewhere else. Like
Now,
I miss that.
the money. Let me scroll. I've got the money comparison for him in the NBA. His NIL valuation right now is $4.8 million. His rookie NBA deal, if he goes number 1 in June, is $60 million over 4 years. So that's hard to pass up on.
It is.
Yes.
That's hard
But
to
he's
pass
so
up
young.
on, no matter how
So
bad he
young,
would stay in college.
460.
But he would go
And
to
then-
a
and then,
really
by the
bad
way,
team,
You're
and
a
he would
year
be
closer
really,
to the
really young.
$400 million max. You're
Yeah.
closer to $400 million in the NBA.
He's
if you go
18.
pro.
Cooper Flagg is 18 years old. 18 years old.
I
I know.
It's like he's an exception. There's other players that I think might
Mhm.
be better off with the
Another
stay
year.
at another year of school, make decent money.
I agree. But hey, let's
he
be
may
real
not
here,
be
though.
the example.
let's be real. With LeBron on the way out, we have always. I mean, the discussion is like, who's next? Who's this? I mean, 18 years. This is the dude to watch. This is him, and he may stay in the college. I just think it's not a business like quote that I heard. It was a real like, I want to be in college. Like I'm actually enjoying this. Good. I mean, in the development aspect too, like freshman version of me versus senior version of me in college, vastly different.
But it's also like, especially now with these big time programs, other than classes, you're not really experiencing the college life, right? Because your team has a headquarters and you're probably spending a lot of time there, and you're practicing there, and you're having study hall there, and you're on trips for road games. So you don't really get the actual college experience.
You can if you want it. I think. Hopefully, this is again where we have to talk about what are these coaches? Are you allowing these guys to have the college experience? Or are you keeping them in that building way more than you really should? Don't also remember you have road trips to Cal and Stanford now sometimes in your league, which is ridiculous.
Yes,
now,
a quick cross-country flight in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
The college experience isn't like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago for an athlete. I'm saying, especially if you
kind of have to work to preserve it.
Flag.
You have to prioritize
because now you still gotta
basketball for sure.
You gotta walk around knowing that everybody is watching you. So you can't have that experience like a regular college student. The minute you stepped on campus and you were the guy or the girl, but in this situation, the guy, your college experience is totally different from anybody else's.
Well, and you're really only there for a semester.
Yes, it's just like, because your thing is, okay, even if I stay another year, I'm still not getting the college experience. Why? Because I'm either doing homework, in class, or on the court. Those 3 games. So I can't do all these other things.
Here's the thing. Arch, this was from Cooper Manning. Says Arch doesn't know how to work a microwave. Seriously. Like,
now that's a damn shame. That's a damn shame.
That's one button.
Yes.
But that, like, these guys that they have someone warming up their food for them. They're so great on campus. Like that, they are in a different lane. They think that's normal. They don't.
It's not normal.
They don't know what it's like to be on the college experience part of it, because everything's laid out for them. Especially, I think, in hoops, because you go straight to the league if you're on this level, Mace, like you're saying. And then, everything is red carpet, and it's a different reality. You're in this bubble that I can't relate to, and they can't relate to us, because it's totally a different perspective. It can't work a microwave, which is just nuts.
Sometimes all you have to do is press one button.
Yes,
it's a one-button deal.
Yeah.
They don't even make you punch in
100.
You just have to hit 1.
All you got to do is not put tinfoil in there.
Yes.
Just hit pizza or bake or something on there.
All right.
Popcorn.
Hut, real quick before you go.
Okay.
Let's take the rookies aside for a second, and let me just give you three guys, because we're going to continue to debate this. But where are you right now on Rodgers, Carr, Darnold, knowing that the price points are going to be different for all 3?
Okay. I think this with Carr, it could be a spot where not totally like this, but similar to like a Russell Wilson getting the money from Denver, but playing for Pittsburgh. I think there's a scenario if you trade this right, you could have New Orleans pick up some of the salary. That would be huge. Let's say that I would lean that way with Derek Carr, just the familiarity with the coach. I do like Darnold. I just don't like the money involved here for what I need to. I want to see more. I've seen what happened last year, but is that going to be the money we're talking about franchise tag wise? Like $40 million plus. Rodgers. I mean, I just don't think Rodgers is the right fit. It's not great for him here, and I don't think it's a great fit for the Titans, who, they're discussing building something, and Rodgers is, 1 year, a 2-year deal. That's really a one, whatever they want to call it. Like, you're not really building any. There's no cornerstone. There's no foundation that's helping there. It's just kind of a let's get through the season with this guy and see what happens. And I don't think that's something that I would want with Rodgers, with what we just saw in New York. I think it's better. He's better off with honestly, like a roster like Minnesota than he would be at a spot here where you've got your own path. Rodgers is going to try to form his when he gets here. I just don't think it's a smart move.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us on the program as he does.
What did you guys say, by the way? What order, consensus wise? Carr?
Carr is of those three.
Carr's number one for me.
Carr, number one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, you're a Saints fan, right?
Yeah, I am.
He has a different viewpoint.
It's not.
Okay,
It's
well.
the Derek Carr experience is not one that I would consider exhilarating by any stretch of the
Well.
imagination. But I'm leaning more towards bridge quarterback versus making a significant commitment to someone to be my franchise
That's the key.
quarterback. And Derek Carr is a perfectly fine bridge quarterback if the Saints were to release him.
There we go.
Yep.
That's
He's going to be available. Normally, he's available for your 15 games plus, which is massive.
right. He also rarely misses games because of injury. I know he was injured at the end of this past season, but it was a fracture of his non-throwing hand, which I don't consider to be like a significant injury. So
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's still a significant upgrade from what we've been, witnessing. So
yes,
he's a pro. He's, he goes about things with some bad teams.
he's got history with Brian
the right way.
Callahan. That you have to factor that in as well. So I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, Derek Carr. But I'd be like,
Right.
That's fine. That's cool. That's kind of how the Derek Carr experience is.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Again, I throw Stafford out there too. It may be a pipe dream, but we should start mentioning his name. If you could trade a second round pick for him, and then trade back from one and pick up more picks, I mean, I don't hate that.
Hutton, great stuff, my friend. We'll talk next
Later,
week.
guys. Yeah, always enjoy this. Thank you.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, 615-737-1025. We're going to keep it on the Four Nations face-off coming up next. PK Subban had some really interesting comments yesterday about the Four Nations face-off versus the NBA All-Star game. Derek wants to get into that. We'll do that next. Willie Donnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. The Four Nations Face-Off final is tomorrow. Canada, our proud United States of America, in Boston. Puck drop at 7 o'clock. Can't wait. The first game was awesome. I can only imagine how good this game is going to be. But I heard Jared the other day criticizing ESPN, and I think he was right on this. He was criticizing ESPN for the fact that, despite the fact that their family of networks was carrying a lot of these games for the Four Nations Face-Off, they weren't really talking about it. And yesterday, to ESPN's credit, PK Subban was everywhere. He was on Get Up. He was on Sports Center. He was wearing some ridiculous sweater, which is what PK Subban tends to do. I mean, he's got the confidence to pull it off. I certainly don't. But he was on, I think this might have been Get Up or First Take. I don't know. He was on ESPN.
The car wash.
Yes, he was on ESPN yesterday. And look, there has been a hot topic about the NBA All-Star festivities, which were this past weekend. You might have missed them because a lot of people didn't really talk about them. And there was a lot of criticism, not just from fans and media types, but the players themselves about the NBA All-Star weekend. Juxtapose that with how great this Four Nations Face-Off tournament has been. It's been fierce. These players care. And PK Subban said this, comparing the Four Nations Face-Off in the NHL with the NBA.
I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA, fans get all of that. But what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby's around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around because those are true leaders. They lead by example. Sidney Crosby, Hockey Canada, those players, both Canada and U.S., it was the players that did that for the Four Nations. It's not the league. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided and said, you know what, boys? We're all in. When is the NBA going to do that? Because, I haven't sat down and watched the NBA consistently since Kobe. Since Kobe has died, I have not sat down and watched the NBA consistently. I love basketball, love the players. I think LeBron's great. I think KD's great. Steph Curry, love watching them. But you got to be on the court. You got to be there. And when you're there, you got to go all in. The fans got to feel that they're getting their money's worth. And right now, there's a big difference between what the NHL is doing with those events and what the NBA is doing.
Derek, you wanted to respond to PK Subban's comments there.
Yeah, because listen, and I agree with some of the stuff, and he's right on some of this stuff. Like, how can you sort of fix, this problem of, certain guys not playing in certain games throughout the season? I don't know what the NBA, can do in regards to that. Maybe you lower how many games they play during the season. I mean, this is an 82 game season. It's grueling. The athlete is much different. I just don't like the whole argument. Well, Jordan did it way back in. The athlete is much different nowadays. Okay. That's just the way it is across every sport, not just basketball, but across every sport. The makeup, the identity, the mentality, the physicality, it's all different from what it used to be back in the days. And these guys are more health conscious than they ever been now. But he is right. The NBA has to fix that problem that they've created in regards to that. But now, listen, when it comes to all-star games, this is what I dislike. When you're trying to make an argument and good and well it's not apples to apples comparison. Comparing the Four Nations to the All-Star game is not an apples to apples comparison. Now, if you want to talk about, all-star games, is the NHL all-star game any better than the NBA all-star game? Well, judging by viewership, no, because last year's ratings were lower than they was the previous year. And it's probably the same way with the NBA. So let's compare that. Like, let's compare those apples, because I guarantee you, if you're saying if the NBA started a sort of this Four Nations, their version of Four Nations, it'd probably be more than that, but their version of the Four Nations, I would almost bet that those guys would go out there and they would give it their all, because to them, that's like an Olympic game. And that's why the NHL players are giving it their all, because to them, it's like an Olympic game. Ask them to give it their all on all-star games. They're going to look at you like you crazy. Like, dude, this is an all-star game. I'm not hitting people. I'm not fighting. Because
But,
this is an all-star game.
Okay, let me push back on that a little bit, just when we're talking about the basketball all-star game. Because
No, the basketball all-star game is, I'm not saying that it's great. It's horrible.
it's terrible. It's
And I don't know how they fix it.
they're not playing basketball. I don't know
No.
why they even do that. It's a charade.
Mhm.
I don't know why anybody would watch that. I don't think basketball is Steph, even if he makes them,
Mhm.
shooting from half court. That's just not. That's
It's
not
a basic
basketball.
pickup game. That's all it is, really.
A pickup game at a playground is 10 times more competitive.
But what
than
I'm
that.
saying is,
That's-
like,
nobody's competing.
A game like you don't
Right.
want to get nobody hurt. That's basically
Okay,
what
and
it is.
that's in a basketball game.
Mhm.
I know basketball is more physical than some people realize, but they used to play a real basketball game for years and years in the All-Star game. There was pride
course.
of, I want to show you. So hockey, you could break your leg if you're, or you could get.
You can do
a
that in
serious-
basketball.
Yeah,
You can do the
But-
same thing in
but it's-
basketball.
yeah, you can, but you're more likely to get hurt. Look, both Kachuk brothers are hurt for the USA. Charlie McAvoy is out for a long time. These guys are injured playing hard.
So
It's
you
more
think
likely to happen.
if that was an all-star game, do you think those guys would play?
No.
Oh,
No, that's
it's the
not
same
that's not
thing.
what I'm arguing. That's
Uh-huh.
not what I'm arguing. I'm saying though, and hockey came up with the 3-on-3,
Mhm.
which is
which
and-
debuted here in
Yes.
Nashville.
right, and that's kind of lost its luster. But
Mhm.
that
Yes.
was a better way of saying, let's try to do something competitive that minimizes the risk of injury.
Mhm.
A basketball game, I think, is worth playing to really showcase if the players bought in and said, I want to show you I'm the best in the world. That's what they used to do. Like Larry Bird and Dr. J, and this is ancient history now, but they used to play a real all-star game where they wanted, the East wanted to beat the West.
Because
So-
they didn't like them. They like
right.
seriously,
There was,
they didn't
there was
like
a
them.
rivalry there. So,
Mhm.
so you hit on something.
Mhm.
Would a USA versus the rest of the world all-stars
Mhm.
work if both sides bought in and said, and what if you put the game in Europe or put it in, I don't know, maybe a South American country. I don't know what you would do, where it would be, but try to create a rivalry
Mhm.
to where there was some pride on the line, because that's what's coming out in this Four Nations face-off. The thing I don't know is, would a guy from, where is would a guy from France bond with a guy from Italy or a guy from Eastern Europe, one of those countries? Would they band together and say, let's beat the Americans? It's a little different when we're Canada, we're Finland, we're Sweden. Playing for your country is different than playing for a lot of countries coming together,
Exactly.
but there might be a little bit of, hey, let's see if the world's all-stars could beat the American all-star. I'd tune into that
No,
if
I
I knew
would
that
too.
they were going to play hard and put something on the line there.
615-737-1025. If you have thoughts on this, call us, text us 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue it next. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Hey, as we all know, a little change can go a long way, especially when you're trying to save money. This is a principle that F&M Bank has. If you haven't checked out F&M Bank's Smart Swipe roundup feature, it's time to do it. F&M's debit card roundup smart swipe feature is a great tool that deposits change into your savings account every time you make a debit card purchase. You got a debit card from F&M, you use it to buy your morning coffee for $5.28 or whatever it is. Smart Swipe then rounds up that purchase to $6. You transfer the difference, 72 cents, to your F&M savings account. So every time you use that debit card, you're getting that change dumped into your savings account and you're saving money without any effort at all. F&M can make that easy for you. That's their motto, banking made easy on purchase. So stop by one of their branches or visit them online at myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. Tell them you heard about it here on 102.5 The Game, because all of us know a little change can make all the difference. It's F&M Bank, member FDIC.
D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan talking about the NBA perception issue. And I think that's the key word in this, perception. LeBron James, if I'm not mistaken, announced 2 hours before tip-off of the NBA All-Star Game that he wasn't going to play. So for those of you out there that say that NBA players don't try hard, it'll take just a hangnail to keep him out of the lineup, LeBron James certainly helped your case with that. But I was telling Derek a story about what my dad and I did a couple of years ago. So as has been mentioned many times on this program, I'm a Saints fan. So my dad and I try to go to at least one Saints home game every season. In November of 2022, we found the perfect setup. The Saints were playing a home game against the Rams. And the following night, the Pelicans were at home against the Golden State Warriors. And we're like, this is awesome. Let's do it. We got tickets. It was exciting. Before that game, because the NBA has a report about player availability, I don't remember how far, I think it's like 3 hours in advance of the game or something like that. The following players for the Golden State Warriors did not play in that game: Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. This was the Warriors starting lineup in this game I went to in New Orleans. Kevon Looney, Anthony Lamb, Jonathan Kuminga, Dante DiVincenzo, and Jordan Poole.
That's a championship
Stellar
lineup.
class right there.
Exactly.
We traveled to New Orleans to
What's
see
the
this
problem?
game.
Exactly.
You could have thrown in there Adam Vingan, Willie Donick, Derek Mason.
We traveled to this game,
Uh,
and I remember my dad. Sometimes my dad can, be a bit hyperbolic, but he said to me, this should be illegal. Like, this should be illegal that the NBA, they shouldn't be able to do this. And I get it. I think the Warriors were on the second half of a back-to-back, and stuff like that happens. But like, that's the issue with the NBA, I think, for a lot of people, is that there's a lot of load management, a lot of rest, and there are a lot of fans. And there have been players who have said this. I'll have to look it up. It might have been LeBron James, maybe not. That said, like, it was a prominent player who I believe recently said, look, I know that people are coming to road games to see me play. So if I can play, I am going to
It was
try
Anthony
to play.
Edwards.
It was Anthony Edwards.
Mhm.
Thank you. Anthony Edwards said,
And he's still pretty young.
yes, that is true.
It's one thing if you're LeBron's age,
Right.
it might be a little different than it may. Maybe Anthony Edwards will feel differently when he's 35. But it's a really good point.
He said, I'm going to try to play because there are people who are coming to see me play.
Yes.
And I think that's the issue for a lot of people with the NBA. And then again, as you juxtapose it to what we've seen for the Four Nations Face-Off, and Derek is right, the Four Nations Face-Off is not an all-star game. It is technically exhibition because it doesn't count in the NHL standings, but they went all in on national pride. That gets people hooked. It's going to set up great storylines for when the NHL returns to the Olympics. Like, they've done a really nice job with this. But the NBA, they've got some work to do to fix this perception problem that they have.
Yeah, and that's what it is, a perception problem. The notion that these guys don't play hard, we can lay that one aside, because when these guys are out there, they play hard. Oh, well, the defense ain't. You try guard, and Willie and I was talking about this. Well, they played better defense back in the day. No, they were fouling every damn body and knocking people to the ground. That's not defense. That's playing football on a hardwood. That's what that's doing. Okay, you were able to hand check and push people around. The NBA said, no, we're not having that stuff no more. We want a more fluid game. We want points to be scored. We don't want 76 to 75 every game. We don't want bad boy type of basketball, even though I loved it back in the days. We don't want that bad basketball anymore. Why? Because that's not what the fans want to see. The fans want to see high-scoring games. When you have high-scoring games, sometimes, hey, listen, that doesn't mean they're not playing defense. Tell me, it amazes me, because it's like You try guarding a 6'11" guy that can dribble the basketball, that can shoot from anywhere, that can post you up, that has a game like a point guard. You try guarding that guy. Go out there and try to guard him.
The guys are more skilled nowadays.
Exactly. These guys are way more skilled.
And it
Even
creates
the
so
centers.
much more space.
Exactly.
When everybody on the court can shoot the three, and not only just shoot a three,
Mhm.
take a step or two behind the line and still be a threat in a lot of cases.
You think
That
teams
creates all of the space. You can't cover the whole space. That's why you see so many games that are 125 to
Exactly.
120.
You think
it's not that the defense isn't trying. It's
Mhm.
just that you have way more to cover.
exactly.
There's more space to cover than you used to need to. And by the way, when you give up the threes, it's three. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's 3 points. You don't think people were trying to guard Steph Curry?
Look at Wemby.
You
He's
don't think
7'4".
exactly. You don't think people are trying to guard or not trying to guard Wemby? You don't think people are not trying to guard LeBron or these other superstars? They are, but the skill set is just it's so great,
Yes.
good to great that even the great defensive players have hard times shutting a guy down.
So you can't do anything about that.
Exactly.
Right? If somebody doesn't understand basketball, you can continue to try to explain that to them. Hopefully at some point you get to them. But to Adam's point,
Mhm.
it may well be true. It probably is scientifically proven that the load management
Mhm.
is the best way to have your team have a maximum chance of winning in the playoffs. And what the NBA does have that it didn't have a few years ago is enough parity to where the postseason tournament, you can be a 5 or 6 seed and still maybe win the whole thing. It's happened. Where it used to be, man, it was just unless there was a huge upset. Once every 5 years
Mhm.
would a really good team go down early, right? You used to know who the final 4
Exactly.
teams were going to be most years. And I think teams are saying, well, let's make sure our team is ready to go for that, and let's do the load management, right? This is sports science. The problem with that is exactly what
Mhm. The
PK
perception.
was hitting on. The NHL players don't do that. And the Anthony Edwards point, that goes way back to Joe DiMaggio, right? Hey, there's somebody out there that paid to come to this game that has never seen me play before. I feel obligated to be out there and show them what I got. There's a pride to do that. The NBA has lost that, and whether it's the right move or not, and whether even the players want to do it or not, it's creating an image that isn't good for the league.
The NBA
It's a problem.
instituted new rules about resting. I want to
This
say
past year, didn't they? Or
before
year?
last season,
Yeah.
the 2023-2024 season. Some of those rules, no more than one star player is unavailable for the same game. Now, what is the definition
Of a
of
star
star?
I'm sure at least every team at least has 1 to 2 guys that you come to watch play.
Right. Teams must ensure that star players are available for national TV and in-season tournament games. Number 3, teams must maintain a balance between the number of one-game absences for a star player in home games and road games, with a preference for those absences to happen in home games. 4, teams must refrain from any long-term shutdown or near shutdown when a star player stops participating in games or plays in a materially reduced role in circumstances affecting the integrity of the game. Teams must ensure that healthy players resting for a game are present and visible to fans.
Mhm.
And they also put a minimum games played threshold to be eligible for major awards. I
think it's
believe
like
65 games.
Yeah, you
You
got
have
to
to
play.
play-
65% of the games.
You have to play. I think it's actually 65 games. I don't know if it's
Because
65.
that's what Joel Embiid got last year. He missed that 65 game threshold. He wasn't able.
Yes, I think it's
And look at this
65
year.
games.
Yeah.
So
But my thing is this. Again, there is problems in basketball. I get it about, guys being available and the NBA is trying their best to sort of, fix it or curve it just a little bit more so for the fans. And that's the right thing to do. But again, you ask hockey players to play 82 games. Ask them to play 82 games. How many games do they play?
82.
82. Ask them to play 82 games. Okay. They do that. All right. Ask them to play in these back-to-back games like the NBA does. And then you gotta, go home and they expect you to play in the home games as well. The NBA, I believe, have more back-to-back games than anybody. The NFL doesn't have any, but than any other league. They have more back-to-back games than any other league. So if you ask hockey players to play as many back-to-back games as the NFL, I mean the NBA does, then maybe some guys would choose to not play in that second back-to-back game.
And back in like 2010, right before I think 2015, they used to have a five game stretch where you would play 2 back-to-back games in that 5-game stretch or that 5-day stretch.
Exactly. So it's not, to me, it's not comparing, again, it's not comparing apple to apple. Listen, the NBA is not perfect. I know what PK is saying. The NBA is not perfect, but let's not just automatically just say, well, the NBA, compare them to this league and this league. Well, we can compare everybody to the NFL.
The league average, according to NBC Sports, the league average for back-to-backs in the NBA this season is 14.9.
Mhm.
Last season in the NHL, the average was 12.
So we're playing more back-to-back games in the NBA than in the NHL. Listen, again, it comes down to, hey, if the guy's injured, the mentality may be in hockey, hey, we're going to play through this injury. We're going to do that. But again, I think there are more guys, because to me, there are more guys that are probably not doing what the perception is than not. We only see the star guys doing it. I understand that's who you come to see at these basketball arenas. But it's not like the whole league as a whole, everybody is missing games. You're going to have star players miss their games, and I get it. But it's not like the league as a whole is, oh, we're going to take out all of these players and they're not going to play in this game, or they're not going to play. No, it's certain players. And like you said, they've tried to curve it as much as they possibly could. Like, you can't miss back-to-back games.
Have those rules helped, by the way?
Why don't I do some
because
quick,
I don't know if it's changed the perception.
No, it
But
hasn't
but I
changed
do
the
wonder for
perception.
people who cover the league and are more into the day in and day out, and the fans who live in cities where, if you're a season ticket holder, the beauty of the NBA is not only are you rooting for your team, but you get to see these mega stars come through there. That's important if you're going to invest that money. Have the fans said, okay, this is helping.
Why don't I do some quick research on that?
Okay.
615-737-1025. We'll also get your thoughts as well at 615-737-1025. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. During the break, Willie, you wanted to know if these resting rules from the NBA had any sort of noticeable impact. I did find an article from last April on Sportico. I did think that these numbers were interesting. Quote, one intention of the policy was to reduce load management or players resting for minor injuries despite being capable of playing. Between the 2017-18 and 2022-23 seasons, the number of instances in which a star player played one game of a back-to-back but not the other nearly doubled from 47 to 88. This season, meaning last season, that number came down to 77, a more than 10% reduction. Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, also said that in 2022-23, 77% of instances of star players resting occurred in away arenas. This season, the home-road split for such absences was nearly 50-50, with just one additional instance of rest on the road versus at home. That dramatic shift helps the league ensure that as many fan bases as possible get a chance to see every superstar play in their hometown at least once.
So it is helping. I
Yeah.
don't know if that will hurt the perception or help the perception that's out there for more of the casual fans, especially the one fan that goes
Yeah.
says, oh, yeah, here comes LeBron. And you get there and LeBron is resting that night. That person doesn't want to know about the 15%. They only want to know about why he's not there that night when he's paying. So I still think that image is an issue. And that is where the NHL is trying. While they have the spotlight, I think this is important for the NHL right now. And this is why I commend ESPN for really hyping up this game. Sometimes, I can remember back when boxing was a little bit bigger, I certainly wasn't following, hey, who's the welterweight champion? Who's the heavyweight champion? But if there was a big fight and we started building up the hype on ESPN, what the big fight is, and hey, you going to see the fight? Hey, where are you watching the fight? The fight? Is it a fight? I was that guy who could be pulled in, and all of a sudden, I'm at somebody's house watching the pay-per-view or whatever. This is, I think, an opportunity for hockey to get some eyeballs just because it's a heavyweight fight. It's people that hate each other, bad blood, rivalry, big stakes on the line. You already had the prelim. This is like the rematch of, Roberto Durant versus Sugar Ray Leonard, whatever. So this is where I think hockey, while you've got people's attention, you do say some things. And there was a lot that I didn't think PK made a good point on. But one thing he did say that I thought he should have showcased a little bit more is the hockey guys don't take nights off.
Mhm.
It might be better for them to do that.
Yeah, it might
there's
be,
probably some
yeah.
sports scientists that are in there going, hey, you know what? Sidney Crosby at 37 probably should rest a few games, but he doesn't want to do it. But that's something that you showcase is the best players play hard every night in that league, and they don't take nights off. I think the NBA players play hard when they're playing,
Yeah.
but it's clear that they have gone with this for the last 5 or 6 years, or whenever they started doing the load management. I think the Spurs really
Yeah. The
did it.
Spurs
That's going
started,
back a ways, right?
A while back.
The load
yeah.
management
Kawhi
became
Leonard?
a thing. Oh, absolutely.
It was before Kawhi.
Kawhi
It wasn't
Leonard
before
is the
that.
poster child
Yeah.
of all of
Right.
this, I would say.
So I think that's what you try to do is while you've got the spotlight, try to take advantage and keep as many as those casual fans in the loop. And maybe you keep a few of them over the long term.
Well, the question I have is, and we'll talk more about the final game between U.S. and Canada tomorrow because the game is tomorrow. I asked Hutton about this last hour. I'm really curious to see what the viewership will be for this game, but I'm also wondering what the impact will be
Mhm.
moving forward, especially if the United States wins. I said this earlier this week. Had Canada won the game on Saturday, let's say the fights happen, but Canada wins that game 4-1. People are talking about the fights that are casual hockey fans in the United States. But other than that, they're probably not really paying attention to it. It was cool that they fought, but Canada still won. Okay, whatever. The fact that the United States won, I think, was huge.
Mhm.
And I'm really curious what the impact could be for hockey, for viewership in this country, the perception of hockey among casual sports fans if the U.S. goes out and wins the game tomorrow?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, because of the way things are in today's society, it's helping the NHL in this situation, in this four nation situation, because now it's my country versus your country, and I don't like you, you don't like me. You boo us, our national anthem, we're gonna boo your national anthem. Even those, in upper management of hockey is playing on it. The whole US versus Canada, the whole tariff thing, they're playing on it as well. So it's a bad thing, but maybe it's a good thing for hockey that all of this is sort of happening on the outside and it's sort of bleeding into hockey, because now a lot more, there are going to be more people. I predict there are going to be more people watching this game than the last game they played.
And the key is ESPN versus free TV and ABC. But ESPN is the next best thing in terms of the eyeballs, the sports bars. Like if you just go to a sports bar, it may not even be a hardcore sports bar, but what's the most likely channel that just happens to be on?
It's going to be on the hockey channel.
It's going to be on ESPN,
Yeah.
right? Or whatever's on ESPN, even if it's, pick a sport. Whatever's on ESPN, the TV just generally starts
But
there.
I'm saying in this
somebody has to
situation-
call and or go up and say, hey, can you change the channel to another one?
But in
And
this
then you got the
situation-
person
I
that
hate-
doesn't know how to use
I
the
hate
remote.
being that guy.
Yeah.
I hate being that
But
guy.
don't you
That's-
think in this situation that just about any bar you walk into, especially here in Nashville, Thursday, Thursday, that the hockey game is going to be on?
Yes.
I would be surprised if I would walk into an establishment and the hockey game isn't on.
Yeah.
At least 3 channels. I mean, 3 televisions.
There are no other, to my knowledge, major games on Thursday.
But
in
even
this-
if
in this
there
sport.
was
There's
a
probably some
major
good college
game.
basketball games.
Even if there was a major game, I think because of this situation, I think hockey in this situation would trump any other sport.
Well, that is why I think
Right
the
now.
league has to take note of this, and the players as well, because the Players
Mhm.
Association is benefiting from this tournament. This is a collective between the two. This is what the players wanted. So the fact that it is in this month where you're between March Madness and the end of the NFL season, this is the lowest level of NFL activity that you're going to, because everybody's kind of back preparing for the draft.
The
this and
combine starts
that.
next
Mhm.
week.
The combine's not this week. The free agency hasn't started. This is a great time to grab the spotlight,
Mhm.
and they have done a brilliant job of this. You think SportsCenter would be talking about this as much as they are if there were big signings, if Aaron Rodgers has signed today, or Derek, or there was a big trade, or the draft was this week? They wouldn't do it. But the NHL, this is why you partner with ESPN, who I don't think does a great job with their coverage overall. It could still be a lot better. I think it's steadily improved since they came back. TNT's coverage is way, way better,
Yes.
in my estimation, much more thorough, in depth, but they don't have the general sports audience like ESPN does. So this is where you really benefit from this. And you can kind of, even if you're not a fan and you don't know who all these guys are, there's something that can pull at you. And the premise is it's our country.
Mhm.
It's the very, very best in the world, and they're playing all out. They're playing all out. It's become great theater.
Right. This is not like, so there is a tournament held every year by the International Ice Hockey Federation, the World Championships. That sounds fancy, right? The
Yeah.
World Championships. It usually happens in April, maybe May.
Mhm.
So it happens during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the only players that participate in those tournaments from the NHL are players of teams that don't make the playoffs. And usually what will happen is if a team gets knocked out in the first round, maybe a player from that team goes to wherever this tournament is and joins the team halfway through. But you look at these rosters and it's a bunch of,
It's guys who aren't in the playoffs.
right, middle of the road type players.
Mhm.
Like the World Championships do not register in this country. There are
No.
other countries that care about the World Championships. By and large, Americans do not care about the World Championships. That is not this. This is a an Olympic preview.
Mhm.
The players who are going to be playing in this game tomorrow, and maybe some if they can't play because they're injured. Basically, the game you're going to watch tomorrow is what the Olympic game between the US and Canada is going to be like at the next Winter Olympics. So you are seeing the best that the NHL has to offer from both of these countries. And, it's funny. We did get one text message. I'm trying to find it here. We got one text message from Craig on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. He said, my biggest problem with the NBA is they give the teams like 5 days in between playoff games when they switch cities. It's hard to get in the flow of a series. And I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
I do like that there has been 2 days in between the most recent round robin game and the championship game, because that's 2 days that ESPN can put on, to mix sports metaphors here, the full court press, or in hockey parlance, the forecheck, hyping up this game, having PK Subban on. I looking over my shoulder. Dylan Larkin has been on SportsCenter.
Mhm.
Dylan Larkin is the captain of the Detroit Red Wings. He's a really good player, been an all-star many, many times. Dylan Larkin is not a household name for a casual hockey fan. Brock Faber, who is a stud defenseman in his second season with the Minnesota Wild, looks like me with the big-ass glasses. Looks like a big old nerd. He was on SportsCenter yesterday talking about this game. People outside of Minnesota, they don't really know who Brock Faber is. He's a great young player, but you have to be a pretty dialed-in hockey fan to know about Brock Faber. But they've been on SportsCenter hyping this game. So I appreciate the fact that ESPN has taken the time after Monday, not really touching on it at all. I like the fact that ESPN is hyping this thing up. And look, my guess is that the ratings will be similar for tomorrow's game as they were to Saturday because of the network. Because ESPN, not everyone may be able to access ESPN the way they can access ABC. So that might take some of the bite out of the ratings. But I do think the game is going to do incredibly well. And I'm hoping that the NHL finds ways to build on this. Look.
So why we just stop the season thing, I think has been sort of debunked. At
Joe Rex Road.
I can see the skepticism on the front end, but now that it's happened, you have to admit, if you're anyone who said, well, why are they really doing this? And I'll admit that during the season, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. From this one, you were starting to name players for the team. I was thinking, this is nice. Okay, fine. Gus Nyquist made team speed. That's going to be a really good thing for him. Great. But I wasn't sitting there going through the rosters as they were naming these teams. Ooh, how does Sweden
wouldn't
match
they have
up?
gotten this break
But
anyway?
What?
They would have gotten a break anyway because of the All-Star break.
Well,
this takes the place of the All-Star break,
the
right?
All-Star
Yeah,
break
but
is
I-
not
but-
2 weeks long.
Right. But at the same time, what I was wondering is how much would everybody engage in this? But they are reaching an audience on some level that would not otherwise watch. That would certainly not watch the
No.
hockey All-Star.
Right.
game.
I
right?
needed
No.
proof of
Yeah,
concept.
you're right.
I was like
Yeah.
you, Willie. I figured I was skeptical of the tournament. I was not on they're not going to try hard. I figured they try hard, but I was still like, all right, I want to see it. I need proof of concept. And then I watched that first game, which was Canada and Sweden. You had a great back and forth game, an exhilarating overtime. And I was like, I'm in. I just needed proof of concept. I needed to see one game. And then when you had the biggest game that everybody was looking forward to, and it lived up to expectations from the pregame presentation to the fights at the beginning, it was a tight game. Like, I'm glad that happened. I had some skepticism, but after I saw that first game, I was like, all right, I'm not skeptical anymore.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I don't think you do. If you did it every year, it would lose the
Luster,
luster. You've got to be smart of when you do this. And next year they will stop the season for the Olympics, which I think will have even more national pride. But it'll be mixed in with all of the other Winter Olympics
Stuff
that's going on.
Yeah.
So you won't quite get the spotlight. So it is unique. So job well done there. I would say.
Take advantage of what the iron's hot, and it's hot right now. So
I'm looking
the
forward
NHL
to
needs take advantage
tomorrow.
of it. And hopefully it bleeds into, the season.
It's
moving forward.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate for us in Nashville, because if the Predators were competitive this season and someone who lives in Nashville who doesn't consider themselves a Predators fan or is a casual Predators fan would have seen these games, gotten hooked. When the Predators came back, you might have made a new fan, right? It's going to be harder, I think, to get into the Predators down the stretch for someone who is just entering this world because the Predators are out of the playoff race. So it's unfortunate timing from that perspective. But I'm looking forward to the game. We will talk to Elliot Freeman of Sportsnet tomorrow. He will be live in Boston. Can't wait to talk to Elliot to preview the Four Nations face-off, Canada and the United States, tomorrow at 7 o'clock. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, ESPN has a salary cap question for all 32 NFL teams. What does ESPN say about the Titans? We'll get to that next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. I just want to read one text to wrap up our conversation from the previous segment. One texter texted in on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Not a hockey fan, but after a Saturday, I have been excited for tomorrow, and I watched the game from start to end. Those Kachuk boys are bad. Beep. My favorite is Brady.
If Brady Kachuk played in an American city, I think he would be. He might even outshine Matthew Kachuk in terms of the villain / guy that you love on your team. Because I think Kachuk, he didn't play. He's playing in Florida. He played in Calgary, right? Not big spotlight teams, even though the Panthers have become a great team since he joined them. But like, imagine a Brady Kachuk playing for Boston or playing for New York, or I think the league probably privately would love to see some sort of swap, like an American star who pulls in people like that texter right there, right? They grab your attention.
Well, where are I'm thinking of just the American roster and like where those players play in the NHL. Like, for example, like Austin Matthews plays in Toronto, right? I'm just trying to pull up the roster here so that I actually have a full list, because I'm just trying to
there's a lot of American stars that do play in Canadian markets. Quinn Hughes plays in Vancouver.
Yes.
Brady Kachuk in Ottawa.
Right.
Austin Matthews in Toronto.
Right.
Not that there's not a spotlight when you're up there, but it's just not the same as playing.
But like an American star playing for one of the marquee franchises. Like Jack Eichel plays for the Vegas Golden Knights. He helped the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup. But Vegas is not a marquee franchise.
And Jack Eichel's not going to score 70 goals in a season like Austin Matthews might, right? He's a different level of star. He's a star, but I'm talking about guys who are really the combination of charismatic and elite players.
Right.
There's a couple other examples that I thought about too of American stars that are not playing in. There's a couple of them on Montreal, right?
Cole Caulfield.
Caulfield's one. Yeah. There's a few, but this is just this is what the world's not perfect, right?
It's not.
It's not.
Man, we hadn't made it
You
perfect
fooled
yet.
me.
It's new to me.
I thought it was perfect.
If I haven't seen it, it's new to me. So the NFL, if the NFL, ESPN NFL, I should say, Dan Graziano had a story on ESPN today looking at salary cap questions for all 32 teams. And I know that the salary cap is a banned phrase on a different program. It's not a banned phrase on our program. So Dan Graziano went through each team and looked at the major decisions that all of those teams are going to need to make as it relates to the salary cap. And this is what he wrote about the Tennessee Titans. This was the question. Could the Titans do what the Falcons did last spring, draft a first-round quarterback, and sign a free agent passer? Dan Graziano writes, quote, from a cap standpoint, sure. The Titans, who hold the number 1 pick in the draft, can draft any quarterback they want. And if they don't think the guy will be ready to play right away, they could precede that decision by signing a bridge option, such as Sam Darnold. Again, though I wouldn't include Sam Darnold as a bridge option. Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, basically whomever. Tennessee has a lot of needs to fill, but the cap number for a rookie quarterback selected first overall wouldn't be much more than $7 million, and whichever free agent the Titans sign in this scenario likely won't command the $100 million in guaranteed money that Cousins got from the Falcons last year, a month before they drafted Michael Penix Jr. This isn't the smartest way to go from a cap standpoint, but quarterback is a position that make teams do weird things. That was Dan Graziano.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with, bringing a veteran guy on the roster and also drafting who you believe is your franchise quarterback or can develop into your franchise quarterback. I think teams have been doing that, for a while now. Now some teams have wanted to do that, but then the rookie has come out and he's played so well during the preseason. And you're like, okay, we're going to let him play. and see how it goes. But I think when you're in a situation like the Tennessee Titans and there's no clear cut, number one guy at the quarterback position, then isn't that the route you would want to take? Draft a guy that you're going to draft him high, but you drafting a guy that you believe can lead your franchise, but he's not ready yet. Well, you bring in another guy. You don't have to pay him the Sam Darnold type money that Sam Darnold would probably get once free agency start, but you can bring on a guy for half of what you would have had to pay Sam Darnold, and that's just the going rate, for a starting quarterback that has, put some stuff on tape. That's probably the going rate, half of what you're going to pay Darnold, around 15 to 20 million. So if you bring in a guy for that, for a year or two, then to me, that's the going rate. I would like a quarterback for a lot less, maybe 10 to 12, but that's the way the NFL is now. If you want to go that route with drafting your quarterback and bringing in a veteran guy, then you may have to pay a little bit more for that veteran guy to be that bridge quarterback until that rookie is ready to go. If that's what you want to do.
I'm thinking of, this happened with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
In Green Bay. But what I'm thinking of, Willie, is what was strange to me, at least, about last season with the Falcons is they signed Kirk Cousins to this huge deal and then a month later drafted Michael Penix. Has there been another recent example of a team giving a big money deal to a quarterback and
Seattle.
then draft?
Seattle.
Which year was that?
But Russell Wilson was drafted in the
Third
third
or fourth
round.
round, yeah.
But that brought Flynn, and at the time they gave him a nice contract, a big contract in their respect, because he had a big 5-game stretch with Green Bay.
Yes.
And they end up signing him to that huge contract, and he ended up not being
I'm just wondering how common that is, where you sign the big quarterback to the big money deal, but then draft his replacement, or draft someone.
I can't
away.
that extreme. I don't remember another example like that. That big of an investment, short term, and with a catch, right? Trying to get out of the Cousins contract, you put it right alongside of Carr with the Saints,
Rodgers
with the Jets. There's a price to pay to get rid of him. Are they sitting there going, hey, that was a really smart move to do that, especially the way that Penix played? It's like, why do we do that?
Yeah.
So I don't recommend that. I that would be among the things you should not do if you're the Titans.
And that's why Darnold is off the board.
So speaking of Darnold, this is what Dan Graziano writes about Sam Darnold.
Anyway.
How would keeping Sam Darnold affect the Vikings salary cap over the next 2 to 3 years?
That is a key question.
He writes, quote, the cap numbers for J.J. McCarthy over the next 3 years are roughly $5 million, $6 million, and $7 million. That's an absolute steal if he could be a starting NFL quarterback, which the Vikings obviously believed when they selected him 10th overall in last year's draft. Having a capable quarterback on a rookie deal allows the team to do other things with its cap, including, in this case, paying Justin Jefferson $35 million per year to play wide receiver. Jefferson's 2026 and 2027 cap numbers are roughly $39 million and $43.5 million, respectively, which certainly indicates the Vikings are expecting to save elsewhere in those years. Franchising Darnold this year and again next year would cost about $40 million in 2025 and about $48 million in 2026. Signing him to a long-term contract would reduce those cap numbers, but even if Minnesota could get Darnold back on a 3-year, $125 million contract, similar in structure to the deal Baker Mayfield got from the Bucs in March 2024, it's still looking at a 2026 cap number around $28 million or so. And that's the best case scenario, considering Darnold probably will do better than that on the open market. The Vikings would be blowing up their plans, not just for McCarthy, but for their entire roster if they brought back Darnold. That isn't to say they won't or shouldn't after the season he just had, but it would be a seismic shift in their plans from just last summer.
Plans change when you go 14-3 and nobody thought you'd be any good. I like, if I'm the Vikings, I like the cap figures that you just threw out there in a, give me a little bit of a team friendly. Hey, Sam, I know you could probably go out and find a big suitor, get competition going, and get paid more, but it went pretty well for you here. Stay here. Give us a chance to keep as many good players around you as we can, and let's take our shot to win. And J.J. McCarthy, those numbers, that's you made an investment in him, but at the same time, you don't know if he can play. and that's still doable, right? And at any point, if he passes up Darnold, then so be it. You deal with it. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to make that
yeah,
work from
if
the
if
Vikings.
if that's in a perfect world. I don't think because Sam Darnold, outside of his rookie contract, he hasn't had a massive contract. He hasn't had one of those paydays. And this is his opportunity to get that one payday.
But that still sounds like a pretty good payday. With that 3 years,
Again.
100 million or whatever you said that was, 25.
Again, but
That's
I'm still testing the market. I'm still going to market.
I get it. You're
still
you're
going
the
to
player
market,
rep.
yeah.
You're the player, but
I'm still going to
I'm
market
trying
and
to
test
sell
the
you on
market.
it's not about getting every dollar you can get.
I get that
And
part.
I understand somebody saying I'm only in this game for so long. I've got to strike while the iron's hot. You're probably leaving money on the table by not taking the biggest deal. But if your goal is to still get paid very well and be in a position to succeed, that to me is worth thinking about.
My thing is, if they said that to you, that tells you what they think about you as a player. They want you to take this because in this situation, taking a hometown discount is not like asking Patrick Mahomes to take his hometown discount. You know, there's proof in the pudding with Patrick. It's years and years. So if you ask Patrick, hey man, stay here, take, and Patrick like, okay, cool, I'm taking it. That's not Darnold. You're asking Darnold to take a hometown discount because you don't think he's worth the money out in the market. You don't think he's worth the 40 million that he may want. I don't know if it's 40 million or not, but say if he wants 45 million. If he asks him, well, how about 35 or 36? That means that's what you think about him.
Here's an interesting one from the AFC South, from Dan Graziano's story about salary cap decisions that teams have to make. For the Jaguars, what are the odds the Jaguars will cut Christian Kirk? And we'll talk more about the receivers later this week. Dan Graziano writes pretty high. I'll put it at 75%. Kirk has 1 year left on his contract and is scheduled to make $16.5 million in 2025, which is perfectly reasonable if he plays. Remember how wild Kirk's $84 million deal seemed 3 years ago when he signed it? I certainly do. But the receiver is also coming off a season-ending collarbone injury. The Jaguars have a new coach in an offensive system, and they will have a new GM soon. Plus, they signed Gabe Davis last offseason, and Brian Thomas Jr. is coming off a brilliant rookie season that established him as the team's #1 wide receiver. Tight end Evan Ingram has been a productive pass catcher for the Jags and is due for a new deal. I doubt Jacksonville cuts both Kirk and Ingram, but who knows? Again, there is a lot of new in this situation. One other thing to watch, the Kirk contract is reasonable enough that the Jaguars might be able to get something for him in a trade if he's healthy.
I mean, again, I get it and I understand it. But I just think in this situation, because like you said, I think Darnold is he's gonna not necessarily set the market for this year's. I'm not saying set the market for the quarterbacks, period. I'm saying set the market for this year's free agent quarterbacks. But I don't think once Darnold goes, and then I think that's when team, other than if Carr is made available sooner rather than later. Once Darnold goes, I think the domino starts to fall.
615-737-1025. One texter has a question for us about a quarterback transaction that was made yesterday. We'll discuss that next. Willie Donnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you quickly. Jeff on our text line had, I thought was an interesting text that they want to read to all of you. Jeff says, maybe you guys mentioned it. We actually haven't, Jeff, so thank you. But speaking about a reasonably priced bridge quarterback at a very reasonable price to manage and teach a young newcomer, what about Andy Dalton going yesterday for 2 years at $4 million per year? Do you think the Titans might have looked at something like that? Remember, this is not a win-now retool. They have holes to fill at nearly every position on the field and need every dollar to build with. The Panthers re-signed Andy Dalton to a 2-year contract. The contract is worth $8 million, including $6 million guaranteed, and has a max value of 10. Andy Dalton is 37 years old, came in and started at one point last season when Bryce Young was taken off the field. But what do you think about like that kind of route for a quarterback, an Andy Dalton-esque?
But he's not being brought in to be the starter, right?
No, I guess
He's the
that's
backup.
true.
He's going to be the backup insurance policy to Bryce Young. What do you think Andy Dalton at this stage of his career is better than Mason Rudolph?
Yeah.
You do?
Mhm.
At this stage of his career?
Yeah, at this stage of his career, yeah. I think Mason's listen. Mason can
How
play in
much
this
better
league.
though? Like I like Dalton for that money,
I think
That's
his
great, but-
arm's better.
but I'm not.
than-
But he
than
can't be in my
Mason.
discussion to be the starter. Or,
No.
That's fair.
No. He's not a starter. Neither one of them are starters. But if you're
Right.
asking me to pick a backup quarter, I'm taking Andy Dalton.
It's easy to say that
I
because
think
Dalton
Jeff's-
used to
yeah.
be really good, but the Dalton the last couple of years I haven't watched him play that close. Can he still throw? Can he? Still
I think Jeff's
make
point
throws?
is with the Titans needing a lot more help than just at quarterback, instead of paying one of these bridge quarterbacks big money. Oh, I was about to say take a. You know what? I can't take.
Yeah,
it's-
you
it's
can't
a-
take
it-
that. Can't
oh,
say it.
I can't say that F word or the other F word. Take a chance on a quarterback. But I
Take
see
a
what you're
fool.
saying.
I
Willie.
am with the texter that the mentality.
Mhm.
What part of the option in your portfolio you've got to have you're casting a wide net right on the pool of quarterbacks, and one of them is an inexpensive person to be the placeholder while you try to sort out all of the other things on the roster. And whatever happens this coming year, you live with it. If that's the best buy, I wouldn't put Dalton in that category. I want something a little bit better, but I like the philosophy.
Later today, you can listen to it on 1025, 1063 The Game. Vanderbilt, the Commodores men's basketball team, is on the road against Kentucky at Rupp Arena. Pre-game starts at 5:30. Tip-off is at 6. And Willie, as we all know, the Commodores have had a couple of close calls. They played tough against Auburn. They didn't close the deal. They led by as many as 16 against Tennessee on the road over the weekend. They were unable to win that game. This is the time where you look at Bubble Watch and bracketology. The latest Bubble Watch. Bubble Watch.
Bubble watch too.
Yes. The latest Bubble Watch on ESPN has Vanderbilt at 49%. The very definition of a bubble team. ESPN writes, quote, Vanderbilt had its sights set on a big resume booster last Saturday, leading Tennessee by 13 at the half, but Zakai Ziegler proved to be too much to handle in the second half. On the surface, it might appear the Commodores are struggling, having lost 4 of their past 5 games. However, a closer look reveals that each of their past 3 losses are to teams in the top 5 of Joe Lunardi's seed list: Auburn, Florida, and Tennessee. Vanderbilt's mid-30s SOR, is that strength of record,
Yes.
is palatable, but earning a signature road win in the SEC would go a long way. The Commodores will get another shot against Kentucky on Wednesday at Rupp Arena.
It's another really tough challenge. I think you can still count on one hand the number of times that Vanderbilt in their history has beaten Kentucky at Rupp Arena. And that's as true for most teams that go in there. It's still a very tough place to win. And this Kentucky team, they have an elite offense, which will be hard for Vanderbilt to stop. You have to hope to win one of these games on the road that Kentucky, and I said this about the last couple of teams that they've played, you got to hope they're a little bit off and not knocking down shots. Vanderbilt gambles with their pressure defense on the perimeter, and especially on the road, it can lead to some If you get hot from the outside, you're going to get some looks. If you hang on to the ball and don't turn it over, you get the crowd going. Next thing you know, it's a 9-2 run. So Vanderbilt's got to hope that they can hang on the boards, not get into foul trouble, and where you can hang with Kentucky is not an elite defensive team. They are not as good on defense. I think at home, I would argue that generally speaking, when the crowd's behind you, it's a little easier to play better intense defense than it is on the road. But this is another really big one. It's an opportunity for Vanderbilt. If you lose, is it the end of the world? No. But somewhere in here, you need one, right? You've got Ole Miss on Saturday, which is even bigger, I think. And it gets bigger if you don't win tonight, if you're Vanderbilt. One other point on their resume, TCU has now won 3 in a row. Vanderbilt beat them. It's listed as a neutral game, but it was like 3 miles from the TCU campus. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, start rooting for the TCUs. LSU is another one. A road win at LSU doesn't sound like much. LSU is probably not going to make the tournament, but it would be good if LSU wins and improves their ratings enough to where that becomes a quad 1 win and makes the resume look better. Every little bit counts when you're at 49%.
Derek, just before you answer, just for context, Vanderbilt is 21-95 at Rupp Arena in program history.
21.
Yeah. The Cats hold a
surprised
95-21
they won that
edge.
game?
But that's not all Rupp. Remember, they used to play at a gym.
I'm reading off of Vanderbilt's website. It says the Cats hold a 95-21 edge in Rupp Arena.
Rupp hasn't been around long enough to have that many. That
Then
includes
on the road.
Memorial at Kentucky.
At Kentucky. Vanderbilt visits Lexington in search of its first regular season sweep of the Cats since 2007.
If you look at this team, and I when you and I talked about this, Willie, weeks ago, it may have been last week or the week before that, about this stretch that they're going to have at the time. And it was Auburn, Tennessee to start it off, and then now we see where they're at. And I said, even then, back then, I said they got to win at least 2 of those games. Give me 2 of those games, and it furthers your cause to be in the big tournament. Would you consider a Texas win a big win in that resume, Willie?
I think it was a very important win.
It was an
Texas
important
just
win.
beat Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
And Texas just beat Kentucky.
that adds to that.
They've already had wins over UT. They have
And
wins
Kentucky.
over Kentucky as well. And my thing was just get 2 more wins. I'm not talking about Arkansas and Georgia, even though Arkansas has played a lot better, and I think that would be a good win for them, but they're not ranked as we sit now. But get 2 wins out of this next gauntlet of ranked teams. They still have an opportunity to do it. And I think Vanderbilt does. And I think their best opportunity to start it is versus Kentucky, because I think they, as good as Kentucky is at times, I think they match up well with Kentucky.
Vanderbilt, by the way, is a 5.5-point underdog at Kentucky. Kentucky minus 5.5. Quickly, some other notable games in the SEC tonight. Number 4, Alabama at number 15, Missouri.
Ooh.
That is an intriguing
Mhm.
contest.
3-point
Columbia.
bomb city right there. Both of those teams will let it fly from the outside.
How about that Auburn and Arkansas?
I was about to
game?
say Arkansas at Auburn.
That's gonna be. I think that's gonna
Interesting
be a
game as well.
Yeah, well, Arkansas needs
good one.
a huge. I mean, where they are right now,
Yeah.
they're playing better, as we know, but that would be, beating Auburn. That changes everything in your outlook. And Auburn's so tough at home. We'll see. Auburn could have a letdown.
Yeah.
Right. This is the time of the year. Auburn's faced so many good. They've taken on all comers and they're knocking everybody down, but everybody's going to give them their best shot. They're awfully good, but they could. Arkansas is talented enough to go in there, and if they're on fire and Auburn's on an off night, that's a game changer if Arkansas could win that game.
Auburn has Arkansas at home tonight, and they're home against Georgia on Saturday, and then they have 4 more games against ranked opponents: home against Ole Miss, at Kentucky, at Texas A&M, and home versus Alabama.
It's a trap scenario, right? These next 2 games for Auburn, those are trap games because Auburn's used to playing the best of the best and winning the way they've been doing it.
Right. So you can hear that game, Vanderbilt and Kentucky, tonight at Rupp Arena in Lexington. That game will be carried right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock tip-off. Good luck to the Commodores. They could use another resume-boosting win. That'll do it for us today. Stay safe, stay warm, take it slow on the roads. Stone and Company coming up next, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Wednesday. And if you can stay out of the cold, please do. Peace.